Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
If you ever needed a good reason to vote for Donald Trump, I've got it. Here it is. Here is a direct quote from Reverend Al Sharpton. If Donald Trump is elected president, I'm moving back to Africa. Vote for Trump. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a true patriot calling in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning, good morning. Oh, thank you very much. The lovely, great voice of Kate Smith, and God Bless America. Thank you very much. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and along with some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call, get on the route service, 734-6969. Right now, without further ado, let's go to our phone lines and get our Pledge of Allegiance person. Good morning.
Well, good morning, sir.
It's not the phone line.
It's the mic line.
There you go. Give us the pledge, please.
Alrighty. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Wheels, we had some calls, and we need to make sure we kind of ride the gain on our callers today and keep it kind of even with me on the needle. If you'd watch that real close today, we'd appreciate it, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Great job on the pledge. Right now, let's also say good morning to our weather forecast, and it's brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. All your carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home. By golly, they've got it all for you. Great ideas to individualize your home at Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Right now, here's the lovely Gina with the weather.
It's time to kick off another work week here at Zeb at the Ranch, and here's what we're looking at as far as weather is concerned for today. Going to be on the windy side out of the west, right around 20 miles an hour. Expect partly cloudy skies, high of 42 with an overnight low of 24. Sunny and 44 for tomorrow with an overnight low of 25 as we move on into Wednesday. Mostly sunny and 50, sunny and 54 for Thursday, and possibly 60 by Friday. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Appreciate it, Gina. Thank you very much. And brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design. These are really good folks. Smart folks, too. Let me tell you, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Wow, what a special, great weather weekend it was yesterday. Fantabulous. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. And now we're back to the work week, and we got a lot of things cooking this week with a lot of great guests on the program. This morning at 9:06, we're going to have John Zamirek on the air, and we're going to be talking about Justice Scalia. Then at 9:30, Alliance Defending Freedom, Kerry Kupak. 10:06 this morning, Representative Fred Wood will be in the studio talking about Idaho legislative update, and at 10:32 this morning back in Washington, D.C., Attorney Gail Trotter talking about why women and all voters of ages from teenage all the way up to us old fogies are really not standing up for Hillary Clinton. I never did, but she's going to tell us a little bit about that, so stay tuned. They don't like her. Anyway, Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in in Burley with Kevin and Cindy and the whole crew. Oh, take your Rumply Crumplies in there and have them come back looking brand spanking new. What you'll think when you pick them up that you just went to the clothing store and bought brand new clothes. They do a wonderful job. You stop in and see them today. The easy location to get into, out of, and get back to get your clothes, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Daryl's Cleaners, they are simply the best. By the way, that terminology, simply the best, also is applicable to SafeLink Internet. I'm telling you what, they're way over 10,000 customers now, and they want to make it 10,001 with you, and you should get the most reliable in service SafeLink Internet. We have been very, very happy with them, and they always keep up with their customers' demands. All you have to do is call them to get on the program. 677-8000. That number again, 677-8000. SafeLink Internet, serving you. I want to take a moment here and say thank you. Very special thank yous to Bert and Elaine Stevenson for the tickets for the Mini-Cassia Lincoln Day dinner on Saturday. They are just the sweetest people in the whole world, and I really appreciate them. We had a wonderful time and sat in between two Cassia County commissioners. That was kind of an interesting day, too. I want to say good morning to Dennis Crane and Bob Kuno, and thank you very much for being so cordial. And we had nice visits. I don't want to eliminate anybody, but a lot of folks came by to say hello to us at our table, and we're certainly appreciative. Cassia County Sheriff Jay Heward had a good visit with him, and Speaker of the House Scott Bedke, and also Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. And Brad gave us an opportunity. We're going to call him, if not this week, the first and next, and get him on the air and find out what's going on from his office during this legislative session. Okay, so thanks again to Bert and Elaine Stevenson. I really appreciate it. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. While I'm waiting for your calls that I'm sure are coming in, I want to remind you, too, about Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Here's the number, and you can call them, and whatever you need, they can have waiting on the counter in case you need to zip in and zip out. By golly, they can help you. 678-0459. 678-0459. They're open at 7:30 in the morning till 5 Monday through Friday, and they always provide the best in warm winters and cool summers. Ramsey Heating and Electric. By the way, I want to mention, this is the big week. We are going to be over at Denny's Restaurant on Thursday for lunch bunch at 11:30 at 611 Overland in Burley. And we're going to have a very special guest. I'm just going to leave it at that. A very special guest at lunch bunch this Thursday. So I urge you to be in attendance. And, of course, Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. And they've also got another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. The very best of breakfast, lunch, dinner, food, anytime, all the time at America's Diner. It is delicious. Denny's Restaurant. You be sure and be there for lunch bunch this Thursday. Thank you. All right, I'd like to have your calls, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The results are in as to what happened in Nevada with the caucus for the Democrats, and also what happened with the Republicans in South Carolina. And let's start first of all with the Republicans. As you know, Donald Trump he's just a roll of the dice away from basically taking all the preliminaries. I don't see, now I'd really like your opinion on this. I don't see any one person jumping up and stopping the train that has Donald Trump's name on it. Marco Rubio came in second place in South Carolina, and his people, and I guess they had every right to do this, but they acted like they had won it. Seriously, when I was watching the after polling cameras on the little party that they had, it was almost as if they had won the South Carolina primary. And they came in second, and Ted Cruz came in third, but Rubio was smiling and gushing and absolutely just thinking and showing to the world that he had won. Well, he had not. Donald Trump won in a landslide, if you will. And on the other side of the coin, Hillary barely got by Bernie, and I am still absolutely shocked. I don't like either person. I certainly cringe with fear, thinking that either person would win the possibility of being the president of the United States. Oh, think about it. Bernie Sanders as president? By then a 75-year-old has-been, never was, wannabe? That's a socialist? And Hillary Clinton? Holy smokes, folks. Let's just think about that for a minute. A liar, possibly going to be indicted on fraud and felony charges as president? I mean, it's absolutely scary. But she won by about 5 percentage points over Bernie Sanders. And I don't know about you, but this whole thing is shaking out to where even this morning, some of the political pundits have already discarded Ohio and other states with their primaries, and they have named and basically anointed Trump as the winner, and they're starting to make plans for the debates and the campaigns of Trump versus Hillary. What are your thoughts? Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Well, I have just a moment, and I wait for your phone call. First one on a new week. Come on, somebody give me a call. Don't forget Mini-Cassia Sales at 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. And if you got some money coming back from your tax returns, I wish. I got a great idea on how to spend the money. How about doing some remodeling of your house and invest more as far as equity? And Zach and the whole crew have several lumber packages over there for you to choose from. And if you need to redo your roof, they've got all the shingles at the best prices. And upgrading your windows with the Western Windows, oh my goodness, stop in and see them today. They can help you, and they will, at Mini-Cassia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport, and they sponsor on Tuesdays Dr. History at 10:06. All right, come on, give me a call. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. There was a surprise, though, in the Republican ranks, and that was Jeb Bush. Let's talk about that in just a second. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, right behind Dr. Crane's office. I'm telling you, this is the week old Zebra's going to start making some appointments to get back in there. My hip was aching this weekend, so we're going to go in there, Nick Greenwell and all the physical therapists with all the exercises and the hydrotherapy pool with the treadmill, the only one of its kind in the area, sports medicine programs. Believe me, they can help you get back to being and feeling like you. Number to call, 678-1191. 678-1191, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Oh, come on now. I wonder where everybody is, asleep at the switch. Come on, give me a call. Jeb Bush dropped out. I honestly did not think Jeb Bush would drop out this soon. I honestly did think that Ben Carson and John Kasich would. Now, there are some people that say Kasich wouldn't drop out until after the Ohio primary. Yeah, maybe. I think he's going to have a tough road to hoe there, too. But Jeb Bush, and he did it graciously. I've got to compliment him. He did it very graciously, dropped out. But then on the other side of the hand, or the coin, I should say, Donald Trump called, and we don't know the exact verbiage. We don't know exactly what was said, but we do know that, according to Trump, it was a friendly conversation. But Jeb Bush did drop out. That did surprise me this early. He wasn't getting, however, any support. And with all of his family going to South Carolina, literally, and stumping for Jeb, it just wasn't there. It wasn't in the cards. It was not meant to be. Caller, thank you. You broke the ice and fell into the water. Good morning. You're on the air.
And it's cold. Hey, couple of thoughts. You were saying that Al Sharpton, if Trump gets into office, he'll move back to Africa.
Yeah.
He lived in Africa because in order to move back someplace, you have to have been there.
Well, it was a direct quote. He says, I will be moving to Africa. And I'll be very honest with you. It would not hurt my feelings at all. As a matter of fact, I would offer my services for that man. I would pack his bags. I would even help pay the plane fare.
Okay, and my other thought was I didn't know that the election in the United States was predicated on 3 states. We've only had technically three states because the Democrats did Nevada, so that's half of one, and then North Carolina did the Republicans. We've had, New Hampshire and Ohio? I didn't know that.
New Hampshire and Iowa. New Hampshire and Iowa.
Iowa, sorry.
Right. No, and I'm not going to give Donald Trump the crown. I'm not going to anoint him with the scepter that says he's president. But now let me ask you a question, fair lady. Who's going to beat him, and where and when?
I don't know, but I hope somebody does.
Okay. Why do you feel like that? I want to kind of go into your mind and your thinking on that. Why do you not want Donald Trump to get the nomination?
Well, I know I don't hear, radio and TV and that all the time, but I hear him all the time say, "We're going to make America great. We're going to do this. We're going to," and I'm so wonderful. And I look at that, wonderful me. But how? I have yet to hear him. How? How are you going to make America great? How are you going to do this? How? He's so busy patting himself on the back that I really don't hear his plan.
Okay, now on that same vein, tell me who you think is saying what they can do and how it will get done.
Not enough of them, let's put it that way.
Okay.
But some of them have had the experience to be, and I'm not saying I'm for or against, but yes, Marco Rubio has been on, in on a few secrets in Washington that he has a little more insight than the other ones, and, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying who I'm backing, but they need to start saying how. In these debates have just become see who can tear the other one down, and a debate needs to be, now if it were me, I would do it this way, and okay, well, that's fine and dandy, but maybe we should do a little more this way, back and forth. That's what a true debate is. Okay.
Now, I really respect what you're saying, and I, too, am going to hold my aces in the hole until I find it time to really reveal who I'm supporting. However, I can tell you on the Democratic side, I don't want either one of those people to even get a pass to go see or visit the White House when it comes to Hillary and Bernie Sanders. What are your thoughts about those two?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I tell you, Mickey Mouse would be better than either one of those, or even Goofy.
I think Goofy is appropriate for both of them. Thank you so much for your call this morning. God bless you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nice lady right there. I appreciate that, Goofy. I like that analogy. I just am amazed, and I really mean this, of the people I've talked to all over this country. And I talk to people in Washington, D.C., and New York City, and Florida, and Texas every single day. Every single day. And I can't find anybody. I can't find anybody that's supportive of Hillary or Bernie. Now, I got a story coming up here that's going to drive you nuts. It drove me nuts when I started reading it. And we'll take this caller first, and then we're going to get into it a little bit. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Okay, I'm on the air. I have a couple of thoughts. In Nevada, when they had such a turnout and high ratings with employees in the casinos, and they obviously are Hispanic or black, how many of those people really are legal voters?
Oh, well, that is a very good question, of which I can't answer that question, nor can you.
I don't think even Nevada can.
Right.
And that makes me sick. And then, obviously, the Democrats have co-opted the two minorities, or whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. And I would be almost ashamed of the fact that we had, if I were a black or a Hispanic person, that we were being co-opted. Because obviously, I don't think the lives of those people have gotten much better under the Democratic administrations. Have they just been born and raised to be beholden?
Would you agree with me if I used the terminology that minorities, both blacks and Hispanics, are being used by the Democratic Party as political pawns?
I mean, it's so obvious. I don't think that you can argue against it, and I think that is sad. Another minority that they might go after, but they're not quite so successful, are the Japanese Americans.
I agree.
Now, why are we putting people in categories? You are an American. Your skin color should not have a thing to do with your brain matter.
I agree with you, Chris, but why aren't the Democrats being accosted for what they're doing? I mean, when I listen to what they're doing, they're actually, this is my own opinion on this, and I'm so glad you brought it up. But my own opinion on this is it's like they've rented a great big department store with huge windows in the front. And in those windows, they have put blacks in one window, they've put Hispanics in another window, and other minorities in other windows, and they're featuring them as a way to get votes. And I find that appalling.
I do too. And I think that the Republican candidates are not saying anything about it. And I just think that, well, or maybe the people who are in the Republican Party need to start saying, you guys are practicing race prejudice. Yeah. Because it just doesn't seem quite fair.
I agree with you totally.
And I would, if I were black or a minority, I'd be in the other party just on purpose.
Well, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and I'm trying to remember the senator from back east, oh my goodness sakes, from South Carolina, I can't think of his name. He stood up with Nikki Haley the other day when they said they were...
Yeah, what is his name?
It just left me.
I really like him.
It just left me all of a sudden, but he's a very outgoing person. And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was interviewed on Fox and Friends in the morning early, and he basically was saying the same thing that you brought up this morning, and you very eloquently brought it up about how the minorities are being used as pawns by the Democrats, and the Republican Party is letting it slide by.
Isn't his last name Scott?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I'm so embarrassed I forgot his name.
You and I both know. And I really admire him because I'll bet you he has messages on his phone that couldn't be repeated.
I agree. Chris, I got to get a break at the bottom of the hour in, but thank you very much. Excellent point this morning. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
That's an excellent point that she brought up. Calls are going to be welcome in just a minute, but here's the deal. In just a second, I am going to give away a half dozen delicious, gooey, warm, just tasty cinnamon rolls from Sophie's Chatterbox, so stay tuned. Okay, I'll be right with that. Don't forget our friends, our dear friends, Dr. Christine Pickup and her staff at Mount Harrison Audiology. And call today at 312-0957 for a hearing screening. Oh, it might be very, very important to find out why you're not having the hearing you did a year ago. It might be related to your heart. It could be related to your kidney health. It could be related to diabetes. You better check it out. And the hearing screening, it's almost like having fun. Seriously, I enjoyed it. And all you have to do to call for an appointment is call 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. You give her a call today. Yes, it is time for Sophie's Chatterbox, and we're going to give away, oh my goodness sakes, a delicious half dozen cinnamon rolls. Hey, by the way, now it's time to order your St. Patrick's Day sugar cookies. Oh, Deanne, did you hear that? Sugar cookies from Sophie's Chatterbox. Oh, that sounds good. And don't forget, on Thursdays every week they have chicken fried steak day every Thursday over there at the restaurant. Delicious food. Great bakery at Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. Here's the question for the day, and it's for first-time winners only. And if you are the winner, call them at 436-0354. Tell them when you're coming in for your cinnamon rolls. This is an easy question this morning. On the TV show Gunsmoke, what color horse did Matt Dillon ride for all the years of the series TV show Gunsmoke? Rode not the same horse all the time, but the same color horse all the time in the TV show Gunsmoke. What color horse was it? Call me at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. What was the color of the horse?
It was a buckskin.
Who is this?
Lillian Wright.
Have you ever won before?
No.
Well, you have now, Lillian.
Thank you.
All right, all you have to do is call them and tell them when you want the cinnamon rolls, and they'll have them ready for you, okay?
Thank you very much.
God bless you. Have a good day. Lillian Wright. It was a big old buckskin. In the early part of the series, the one they had was, he was a big dude. He must have weighed 13 and a half, and I mean, when he run, the ground shook. And congratulations, Sophie's Chatterbox, and the winner, Lillian Wright, this morning. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. By the way, too, don't forget Barry Equipment and Rental. I'm going to do this commercial, and we'll take some more calls. I'll be right with you, caller. Don't go away. Barry Equipment and Rental with Eli and Nick and Juan and the whole crew. I'm telling you, these guys are good at all three locations, Twin Falls, Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They have all the equipment to get the job that you need to get done right. That's right. They've got all the Bobcats. They've got all the Coyote tractors, the big Doosan loaders. And now's the time to get in there and talk to them about those Walker mowers. It's right around the corner. Stop in and see Barry Equipment and Rental today. Twin Falls, Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Thank you for your patience, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
I think the cure-all for all this problems we're having is Donald Trump. I think he's the only one that's going to bring this Republican Party to the White House. Because I don't think Rubio, as much advanced a guy as he is capable of handling a caveman like Putin and the leader of Korea and China. And I think that's the only one. I think the Republican Party is, according to the news this morning, is starting to back Trump.
You know something, Tony, I'm really worried about this situation with Trump. He comes on as brash. He comes on as abrasive. He comes on as some of the words and slogans and phrases he uses, a little bit of street talk, and sometimes not very professional. But you know, when you talk about Putin and you talk about the Castro boys and everybody else, maybe it's high time, maybe it's way past time to have somebody look them in the eye and say, no, we're going to do it this way, whether you like it or not.
Well, that's the way it's going to have to be. So far, the Republican Party has done nothing over the years. They've just taken up a lot of space in the White House there. And who else have we got? If we're not careful, we're going to end up with Hillary.
Well, the Republican Party, and I'll say this, even though most of my friends in politics are Republicans, they dropped the ball at the last election, and they have not shown any spine. They have not shown any backbone. They have not showed any clamoring for news or making news to fight the Democrats and Harry Reid, etc. So they brought on their own set of problems.
Well, I think they're finally figuring out they're going to need somebody like Trump, as brash as he is, maybe to get this country pulled back together. All
right. Well, Tony, I always appreciate your opinion. God bless you and Mary. Have another cup of coffee and enjoy a Monday.
Sure will.
All right, buddy. Thank you, sir. What do you think, honestly? What would you feel like waking up the day after the election and hearing and knowing that Donald Trump was the next president? I mean, do you have certain feelings of, oh boy, or do you have certain feelings of, yeah, go get him, Donnie? What are your feelings if you woke up the day after the election and Donald Trump was the president? What do you think is going to change? What do you think is going to raise the eyebrows of people around the world? What do you think? Give me a call. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. I got another story that it made me so doggone mad when I heard this morning. I still can't find that pen. It's here someplace on the floor, but I whipped the pen into the wall. I thought, you spoiled brats. Hang on, I'll get to that in just a minute. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Yes, it was formerly called Ted's Diesel Electric Service, formerly. But, Doug bought the business, and now he's changing it to where he should change it, to Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Same great service, just a different name. And they've changed locations, easier to serve you at 635 21st Street, Al Frisco Road in Heyburn. Call him, make an appointment, 878-4991. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. This story, when I heard this, I just about wanted to jump out of a basement window. It infuriated me because it goes back to something that we had talked about on this program about a week and a half ago or so. Some Ivy League colleges, like Brown University and some others, the supposed cream of the crop of learning, Ivy League schools, oh boy, they're the epitome of their noses in the air. Hold on, caller, just a minute. Let me finish my point and then I'll get right with you. The students are complaining that their homework for their classes to get their degrees is getting in the way of their public activism. Oh, boy. Hang on. We'll have more right after this. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Thank you.
Good morning. About waking up with Donald Trump as president. I think in some cases that would be a good thing. And I think in others, I'm not going to say, I think all around this country would be better.
Okay, you think it would be better. You think it would probably, put us back on track towards being more strength-oriented, etc.?
And then they'll start doing that, and then we'll get somebody back in there that, is going to undo everything.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting.
That seems to be the way it works.
My fear, sir, is waking up on the day after the election and hearing that Hillary was the president. That's my biggest fear. That's a nightmare.
If Hillary was the president, or even Bernie Sanders, waking up the day after the election would be a painful thing because I don't think we could survive another 4 years.
No, I agree with you.
Ultra liberal, communistic ideas.
I agree with you.
Couldn't survive.
I agree with you. Thank you for answering my question. I appreciate that. That was very nice of you. Appreciate your call.
You're welcome.
God bless you, sir. Thank you.
God bless.
All right, sir. You know, I want to get back over to this other story here real quick. Can you imagine? You're going to school to get an education. You, in many cases, are going to school on scholarships. You're going to school to get a degree. You're going to school to hopefully graduate and increase the value of our workforce in America. But now these kids, these punk kids, are complaining because it's getting in the way of their activism. What? Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb, anybody would be better than what we've got. But I think another thing we need to really look at is who the vice president was going to be for either one of them. Hopefully none of it was Hillary, but I think the vice president
All right.
is equally important.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Bob, and seriously, if it's Donald Trump as president, who, of all the people involved in politics on the right, who do you think he might name as a vice presidential running mate?
You know what? Hollywood, I can't even think. They've all chewed on each other so bad. I don't know whether any of those guys would be any good for Trump.
All right.
I have no idea who it would be if it wasn't one of the presidential competitors. I just have no idea, Zebber.
I don't either, my friend, but thank you for your call. God bless to you. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's an interesting point, though. Who would Trump pick? And who would want to run? I don't know if I want to say this or not. Who would want to run with Trump? You're going to be in the shadows, in the deep shadows. I don't know. Calls are welcome, 436-2244. Hey, guess what's coming up on March 5th? Yep, it's back again, the Sheridan Ranch Bull Sale. Cordell and Patty Sheridan, I'll tell you what, this 21st annual Bull Sale, and this is a ripping good sale. Their bull program always emphasizes calving ease, structural soundness, udder quality, growth, and moderate frame cattle, easy keeping cattle. They've got the best. Cordell and Patty Sheridan of Sheridan Ranch, and they're also going to have a guest consignor this year, Deep Creek Ranch, Dennis and Cindy Tim. Oh, this is going to be March 5th, starting at 1 p.m. at the Burley Auction Yard in Burley. Lunch provided at noon. 85 bulls to sell and free delivery up to 300 miles. So don't forget the Sheridan Ranch Bull Sale coming up on March 5th. We're going to have Cordell on the phone with us. I forgot when. I think it's in the next couple of days, as a matter of fact. He's going to tell us more about his bulls. Great bull sale. Every year, super sale. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, young man.
Well, I don't know about the young part, but it sure makes me feel good.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, with Donald Trump, if he was to become president, I'm personally thinking the way he's talking in a lot of his speeches where he agrees with the mandate on this insurance.
Yeah.
And he agrees in everybody being taken care of, which before they even started tweaking this and throwing Obamacare at us, if you didn't have any money, didn't have anything, you go to emergency room. I did not know an emergency room that would turn you away.
Yeah.
You had the emergency medical.
But right there, Doug, stop for just a second. You made a good point. But there are people, and we've got to do something to clean up this system. There are people that use the emergency room for a cut fingernail. And we've got to do something to cut down the cost, the exorbitant cost, and the misuse of our emergency room services.
Right. And the ones that do it are the ones on welfare, the ones that are illegal. They're the ones that are doing it.
Yeah.
There are a few others that are, but most responsible people don't do that. It's the irresponsible that do that, and to fix that, I don't have any ideas.
Well, I think you need to have, I'm really glad you brought this up, because I'm going to be talking to Fred Wood, Representative Fred Wood, later this morning on the subject of Medicaid and the 78,000 here in the state that are on the bubble, etc. But, you know, I don't think it's politicians. I think it should be an overview group, maybe state by state, Doug. I don't know. This is just off the top of my head. Let me see what you think of this. I think there needs to be private citizens that are appointed possibly by the governor's office of every state to study Obamacare, study the effects of canceling out Obamacare, studying Medicaid, Medicare, the whole 9 yards, and get a general opinion from 50 states as to how to improve this or even trash it and start over. But I don't want politicians behind closed doors trying to settle this problem.
Exactly, because we're the ones that's going to be suffering from it.
Yeah, exactly right. And they can walk away from it knowing it's not going to affect them.
This is true. I also feel if they do stuff like that, they should be held responsible. Their benefits should be put towards this if it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to have, as you say, they need to have a little skin in the game themselves.
Well, we've got to have in this country more public involvement. I know a lot of people are tee-heeing and snickering over that because, as you well know, Doug, people are not getting involved. People don't want to put the skin in the game, as you said. But this country is absolutely going to turn over with a white belly to the sun if we don't get people, private citizens, more involved in what's going on.
Well, one way they could get private citizens more involved if they put a reality show on TV of what will happen on politics.
That's a good idea.
Maybe some people, get some high-profile people to play the parts. Maybe some people will get involved, but that's all they're interested in. You ask them who starred in this and who done that video, 90% of the youth will tell you, but you ask them who won the Civil War, 90% of them can't.
Yeah, it's just appalling to me, and I've said this so many times on this program, and I'm not saying all of the millennial-aged voters. You know that, Doug. You've heard me say it. I said that, but there's a lot of good kids out there, but there's a lot of stupid jerks out there that are furthering a cause of imbecilic attitude and actions.
Yep. Well, I hate to run, but I got a customer coming in. He's got a lot of money coming out of his pocket.
Well, hot diggity-roo. There you go. All right, thank you. Appreciate your call. I got to get the weather on in here. Holy smokes, I looked at the clock, and on wheels is going, Zebber. Anyway, the weather's brought to you by Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. Oh, this is an amazing store. This is an amazing business. And they can make up anything and everything customized for your business or your whatever, your jackets and caps and all the writing utensils, business cards. I'm telling you, Nicole is so gifted, along with the whole staff at Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
It's time to kick off another work week here at Zebeth Ranch, and here's what we're looking at as far as weather is concerned for today. Going to be on the windy side out of the west, right around 20 miles an hour. Expect partly cloudy skies, high of 42 with an overnight low of 24. Sunny and 44 for tomorrow with an overnight low of 25 as we move on into Wednesday. Mostly sunny and 50, sunny and 54 for Thursday, and possibly 60 by Friday. That's your weather forecast for Zebeth Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. Brought to everybody by Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. Wonderful, wonderful people. You stop in and see them today. I want to go back to this because I was reading about these kids, these absolutely snot-nosed, wet behind the ear student kids. And they've had an opportunity to go to some of the most prestigious colleges and universities in the country to get the best of educations. And now they're complaining about their homework, saying that the classes are too tough to get their degree because they don't have time to work on their student activism, to go out and protest and everything. What? I mean, what? You've got to be kidding me. And they said, and there were quotes in here in this story, and it'll drive you nuts if you read some of this. Social justice activists at Brown University have complained their activism is taking an emotional toll on them, and they don't have time for all the activism because their classes are too demanding. What happened to American education? What happened to going to school to be a lawyer, a doctor, a pharmacist, whatever? And then you sit there on your little rose petals and you say, well, my class is too tough. I don't like it because they're giving me homework when I want to go out and protest, and I want to lay on the lawn, and I want to have the cops chase me with water hoses and everything. What in the world is going on in this country? If you think for 2 seconds I'm going to say poor baby to these kids and worry about their mental, physical, and emotional health when they should be studying and they want to be activists, are you kidding me? And it's not just a few. It's a whole bunch. And Wednesday, be sure and tune in. If you're not on the air with me, tune in at 10:30. I am going to have the University of Idaho President Staben, on my program for 10:32 to about 11, just before 11 o'clock. And I'm going to be asking him about all this garbage. I'm going to be asking him about the high cost of college and universities, the tuition rates and everything. But then I'm also going to be asking him questions about why we have incompetent idiots like at the University of Missouri, teachers that try to throw the press off the lawn, teachers that advocate activism over education. We've got to clean this mess up. Education, in my opinion, is a pigsty when it comes to higher learning. And the insane are running the asylum. That's my opinion, and I'm going to stand behind it. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I can just imagine. I had a professor by the name of Nielsen my freshman year of college, and he was a big dude. He had played pro football for a while, and he'd get up in front of the class, and he'd say, well, now here's what I want done for tomorrow's class assignment. And I really had no feelings about saying no to him whatsoever. I did it. And I enjoyed his class. And I learned from his class. But today's kids would say, oh, well, I can't do your homework assignment. I got to go out and sit on the street and protest. My goodness. Caller, I'll be right there. Have patience with me. I'll be right there. Don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, they are the best. All 7 locations. You stop in and check out all the great buys on tires that they have now during the Founders Celebration sale. Yes, they do. All the great tires for your cars, pickups, SUVs, horse trailers, everything. And the best in brake service. The very best in brake service. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. Yes, I know they got the best in batteries. And you stop in and see them today. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mikey and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Caller, thank you for your call. Go ahead, please.
I apologize, sir. They hung up.
Well, it's not your fault. Thank you very much, though, Wheels. You're very polite. Call back, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, imagine going to school to be a activist. Unbelievable. Wow. Did you see, Wheels, did you see the Daytona 500 yesterday?
I did. I went over to my grandparents and I watched it with my grandfather.
They won by less than 6 inches. 6 inches, the width of a bumper. I mean, my goodness sakes, congratulations to the winner of the Daytona 500 yesterday, Denny Hamlin. It was quite a race. Wasn't that exciting?
It was. It was a nail-biter, and I give it to all the other racers out there that did pretty well, because I understand that the wings were cut down, to give them traction in the rear.
Yeah, I noticed that, man. It was a good race. Answer that, and I'll see if I got time for another call. I want to remind everybody you're listening to Zeb at the Ranch. Make sure you're hearing everything. Contact Mount Harrison Audiology, 312-0957. I've got exactly 1 minute, caller. Go ahead quickly.
Thank you for your time. My name is Shelley Holy, and this may be a shock to you. I'm willing to put my skin in the game, and I believe God has called me to run for the presidency on the Republican ticket, and I don't have any money. I don't have money for political ads or anything like this, but this is no joke. God has called me to run for the presidency on the Republican ticket, and I don't know what to do. I've never done this before, and so I don't want to step on any toes by saying this all of a sudden, but I really need your prayers. I need the financial support. My car's broke down. I just finally got a new phone. It was broke. I didn't have it for a few months, and now I'm kind of working with this new phone that I tried calling earlier.
All right. Well, I appreciate your call, but as I said, I've only got a minute, and that is up because I have to go to the news right now. I wish you luck. Good morning, everybody, and don't forget, we're going to be back in about 6 minutes after the CBS News with more Zeb at the Ranch on a Monday. Stay tuned. Wheels, take us to the news. Wow, here we go. Hour number 2. You know, they said the weather was going to be ugly today, but it's so far really kind of nice outside. Hey, Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always the Georgia Dodo. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and the strange Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
I'll tell you what, always getting rid of your garbage. They are the best. Locally owned and operated. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Call them about the carts, the dumpsters, the roll-offs, the portable restrooms, everything at 734-6969. Yep, it's true. They are always at your disposal. Western Waste Services. Really good folks. By the way, every day on the program, when we start things off at 8:06, we have the weather forecast, and it's sponsored by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door and the very best of whatever you need to make your house a home at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Real quick, before we get our guest on the air this morning, I also want to say thank you. Thank you so much to Joel Heward and his family and his staff for all they do in the community. They're so involved in the community, and they are always there to serve you. When there's the passing of a loved one, please write this number down and call them for help and assistance. It's a very tumultuous time, and you got so little time, precious time, to get everything done, and they can help, and they will help. Always with the highest ethical standards, with unquestioned integrity. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, and the number 436-5636. 436-5636. I've had the next gentleman on my program numerous times, and I have the highest respect for him and his thinking, if you will. And he just finished an article called Honor Justice Scalia by Keeping His Court Seat Empty for Years If Necessary. And I say good morning to Dr. John Zmirak. How are you, John? Good to have you back on the program.
Good morning. It's nice to be back on. Thank you.
You know, I got to tell you something, and I think you'll understand, and I want to say thank you to you for filling in here at the last minute this morning. We had a cancellation. I really speed read the article that you had written and highlighted as much as I could. But what are your thoughts about the passing of Justice Scalia and what kind of tumultuous times it puts on the Supreme Court? Give us kind of an overview.
Well, first of all, I just want to pay a personal tribute to Justice Scalia, who was an enormously generous, gifted, kind-hearted, but intellectually firm and courageous member of the U.S. Supreme Court.
All right.
He's the kind of American that we are not producing as much anymore. Sort of not quite the greatest generation, but maybe the greatest generation of conservatives. His service wasn't military, but it was judicial. And it was just as important for guarding our freedom. I think the most important thing we can pull out of Justice Scalia's legacy is a remark he used to make quite often when he wasn't on the court, which was that the treatment of the U.S. Constitution has been perverted and that the Constitution itself has been hijacked and turned into a document that justifies essentially the rule of America by the majority of 9 lawyers. So 5 lawyers appointed by the president for life have enormous power over the life of you and I, of every American, and are able to override the democratic process in really crucial areas. And Scalia did not think that this is how the Constitution was meant to be read, and he certainly did not believe that 5 justices on the court should be looking at every law and every provision of the Constitution and trying to see how it could be adapted or rationalized or squeezed through the eye of a needle to suit whatever the zeitgeist was, whether it was a liberal or a conservative zeitgeist. Scalia thought the most important thing about our Constitution was that it was a fixed text, that it was supposed to stand above electoral politics, that it was supposed to stand above the changing fashions of the day. He pointed out once that when in the late teens, when women wanted to vote, you didn't have justices on the Supreme Court looking at the Constitution and saying, well, you know, the spirit of the Constitution would say that women have the right to vote, so we're going to reinterpret the Constitution to give women the vote, or we're going to pretend that it was intended for women to have the vote all along. No, Americans got together, decided it was not fair that women couldn't vote, and they amended the Constitution. That's how it's supposed to work, and that's what Scalia holds up as the example. Instead, when liberal justices wanted to legalize abortion because they thought it was a good idea, or when they wanted to legalize same-sex marriage because they thought it was a good idea, they just pretended it was already in the Constitution. They read it in there in much the way that liberal Christians sometimes read things into the Gospels that aren't there, and there's no appeal. There's no appeal to a decision of the Supreme Court. You have to re-amend the Constitution to something like, no, we meant it the first time. This means only what it says. And that's an enormously cumbersome and difficult process, amending the Constitution. It's supposed to be, because the Constitution is not supposed to be a political stick that 5 lawyers use to beat up the rest of the country, but that is what it has become.
I agree. Boy, that was a great statement. I've got a bunch of questions to ask you for what you just said. And you mentioned the words, the Constitution has been hijacked. John, I ask you, as a friend that's been on this program before, why and how did we allow the Constitution to get hijacked in this country? And can we turn this thing around?
Well, the way it happened was that Republicans looked at the process of confirming judges to the court through the lens of a civics textbook. Oh, we're just looking for someone's professional qualifications, so if he's got a Harvard degree, if he's written a lot of opinions, if he's well-respected, basically a kind of country club. We applied a kind of country club criterion to confirming justices for the court, while the left saw accurately, if tragically, that the court is irreversibly politicized, that whoever has the majority of the court is going to be able to invalidate the laws passed by the other political party. The Democrats saw that, and in a very cynical political move, they stopped Justice Bork from being appointed to the Supreme Court, and instead we got Anthony Kennedy, the man who wrote Casey versus Planned Parenthood, which enshrined abortion even more deeply in the Constitution, the man who wrote Obergefell, enshrining same-sex marriage in the Constitution and endangering the religious liberty of any church that won't play along with it. So that one court battle, that one battle in the Senate over a court confirmation, had enormous political impact, enormous political consequences derived from the Democrats having the testosterone to fight Robert Bork, and the Republicans, even under Reagan, just not wanting the battle, not thinking it's that important. Now, part of that comes from the split in the Republican Party. You have the economic conservatives who regard things like abortion and immigration and other social issues as distractions from the main business, which is lowering taxes and lowering regulation. And then you have the socialist conservatives who regard the economic issues as kind of a distraction from the central issues of supporting religious liberty and protecting unborn lives and supporting traditional values. And the Republican coalition has not held together to insist on getting justices on the court who will hold to the actual text of the Constitution. So we get pro-business supposed conservatives, really just pro-business Republicans, waving along, agreeing with the Democrats when they want to nominate justices who will impose socially liberal readings on the Constitution, where in fact the Constitution is completely silent.
John, I'm going to say this, and I'm not naive about this at all because I do follow this extensively, but I am sick of the right and the left, the liberal and the conservative. It's about time we started going back to two simple words, common sense, in choosing people that are going to use the virtues of our Constitution and our values as Americans to put this country on the right track. Do you agree with me?
I agree, but I don't think there's enough common ground between left and right now. I think we're in a very divisive period, and any attempt at forging common ground will end up redounding to the benefit of the left. So I think right now is a time for polarization. I think we need Republicans in the Senate to regard it as one of their campaign promises that they're not going to confirm liberal justices proposed to the Supreme Court. That, in fact, they're going to apply a conservative litmus test, just the way the left has been applying a liberal litmus test. It's time for every Supreme Court nomination to be a battle between left and right, where we talk about the actual consequences. If this person is confirmed, will it endanger our Second Amendment rights?
Right.
If this person is confirmed, will it endanger our First Amendment religious liberty rights? Does this person regard Roe v. Wade as rightly decided? I think these have to become the questions that are asked at the nomination process, and we conservative voters need to hold Republican senators accountable. If they vote to confirm people like Sonia Sotomayor, they deserve to be challenged at the next Republican primary by a conservative senator who will not vote to confirm people like that. If the Supreme Court is going to arrogate this level of almost monarchical power to itself, we the people have to be able to exert some control over who gets on that court, or else we really are not a democracy anymore. We are a dictatorship of 5 lawyers.
You know, I was at a dinner this past Saturday, John, where Idaho Senator Mike Crapo, United States Senator Mike Crapo was there, and he made a very definitive statement that no, on behalf of he and his colleagues, they would not confirm an Obama selection. Do you think the Senate will hold firm?
I certainly hope so. And I think we need them to hold even firmer. I think if Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, God forbid, are elected president, I think the Republicans need to fight their nominees to the court, even if it's not an election year. The liberal Democrats never vote to confirm conservative justices anymore. You're not going to see a confirmation like Scalia got. The Democrats have this, they know that the court is politicized. Ronald Reagan once said that in the arms race with the Soviet Union, it seemed like only one side was running. In the battle over the politicization of the Supreme Court, so far only the Democrats have really been running in the race. They've been, or a better metaphor, they have known for a long time that this is mixed martial arts, and we have been treating it like a game of badminton.
Let me say this, and John, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in my statement, excuse me, in any way, shape, or form. The Senate can review and advise and consent and deny any of Obama's possible nominations. And this could be a turnstile type thing for many months and many nominations to come. However, is there a right for me to be concerned that if the Senate goes on recess, that maybe in the dark of night with his pen and his phone, that Obama might use an executive order and put one in after a recess? Are you worried about that?
I am a little worried about that, and I think the Senate should consider not going into recess. Do whatever it takes. I think Ted Cruz might be willing to stay there and read green eggs in ham. Let's treat this like a filibuster, because remember, the Democrats they're out for blood. They're playing for keeps, and it's time for us to realize that and stop bringing a Nerf bat to a gunfight.
You made in your piece, and I want you to highlight this a little bit and be very emphatic, some options, some very smart options that we need to listen for and absolutely demand from the GOP. Would you go through those and explain those, please?
I'm sorry? I missed that.
Well, I just said that you, in your piece that you wrote, you had 3 options, smart options that we can have through the GOP. I'd like you to go through those and explain those about choosing a solid constitutional conservative with a long track record. That was number 1. But go ahead and explain those to the audience. I don't
have the piece up in front of me. If you just give me the points and I'll explain them.
All right. First of all, you had choose a solid constitutional conservative with a long track record. Go ahead and explain that, please.
Right. I mean, one of the problems with Justice Roberts, as it's turned out, is that he was selected by the Bush administration precisely because he did not have a long track record that liberals could pick apart in confirmation hearings. The idea was that we have to find a consensus. We have to get someone that the Democrats are willing to go on board with. Well, as Senator Ted Cruz pointed out, there were a lot more solid constitutional conservatives available, but they had a more controversial record. They had made it clear that they were more like Scalia. And what Bush decided to go for, after the failed attempt to get Harriet Miers, who God knows what her constitutional views were, she was just a Bush administration crony, when the right rebelled and forced Bush to withdraw Harriet Miers, John Roberts seemed like a decent stealth candidate because he didn't have a long conservative track record. We were told by the Bush administration, just trust us. We know this guy. He'll vote our way. Well, sometimes he has, sometimes he hasn't. Certainly his vote on Obamacare was catastrophic and I think not really constitutional. Instead, we need to find more people like Robert Bork, more people like Scalia, and be very clear that we're going to fight for their nomination. We're going to put political capital into it. And if the Democrats don't approve him, that the president will then choose someone more conservative, not less conservative.
Absolutely.
And that every nominee who's rejected will result in another more conservative nominee being proposed, so that by playing the obstructionist, the Democrats are just going to make the deal worse and worse and worse. And then we need to be willing to walk away. If the Democrats in the Senate manage to obstruct every worthwhile nominee to the court, a Republican president has to be willing to leave that seat empty, rather than appoint some worthless compromise choice who will have enormous power over America, over Americans and their lives, to distort the Constitution. It's better to leave the seat empty. And if the size of the court shrinks, if we end up with 7 justices or 6 justices, because of a prolonged political stalemate in the Senate over who is going to be appointed to the court, over really fundamental political and moral and constitutional issues, well, that's good. It would be better than the Republicans endorsing and putting on the court people who are going to keep up the corrupt status quo, which is the Constitution being hijacked by liberal elites to shove their ideas down the throats of American voters.
John, a couple of final thoughts here quickly. You kept referring to whether the GOP had the spine to do this. Over the weekend, the Obama administration spin machine, instead of Obama going to Justice Scalia's funeral, they showed him with a notebook the size of a desk being carried along the White House path into his office that he was going to study during the funeral all the possible nominees. Give us honestly your appraisal as to where we are today and who you think he might nominate as a person to take that seat.
I think the Republicans know that they have to stand firm on this. I think that if Mitch McConnell caves on this, he knows he's going to face a leadership fight, which he'll probably lose. And I think any senator who caves on this can expect a powerful challenge in the next Republican primary from the right, and that the pro-life movement and the Christian right and even a lot of small government advocates will unite to support an alternative. So I think for this fight, for Obama's supposed last nomination, I think the Republicans will hold firm. My hope is that this new philosophy of how to approach judicial confirmations, this needs to carry over into the next presidency. If say, Donald Trump were elected president, Republican senators need to hold him firm to what the pro-life things he said on the campaign trail. If he does appoint his pro-choice sister to the court, they need to be ready to reject it.
You know, you said that you hope they hold firm, but final thought here this morning, John, with the left-wing, very biased media and how they can rearrange the stories so that the American public has a damnation and condemnation against the GOP, will the GOP stand firm? That's my major worry right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole game. There's really no point in electing Republicans if they're going to let the Democrats appoint the Supreme Court and override all the laws that are passed by the Congress and by every state house in 50 states. So really, the Republicans need to go big or go home. If there's any reason for the Republican Party to exist, it is to prevent a left-wing dictatorship imposed by 5 lawyers on the country by unelected lifetime appointee judges. If they're not willing to fight that, then really there's no point in having two parties.
I totally agree. John, please come back and visit with us in the future. Excellent piece written for the stream. John Zmirak, thank you very much. God's blessings to you, and we'll look forward to having you back.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting piece. And like I said, it was just kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing this morning. I had another guest cancel at 9:06, and I relied on a good friend of mine back in Washington, D.C. to line up Dr. John Zmirak this morning. And he had written a story, this piece for the stream called Honor Justice Scalia by Keeping His Court Seat Empty for Years, if necessary. And I totally agree with his concepts in this story, that if we get a liberal left thinker on that court to take over Justice Scalia's seat, our Constitution and the values of this country at its inception by our forefathers, with the First and the Second Amendment and many others in the Constitution, they could fall. They could go by the wayside, as will the Constitution itself. And I just hope and I pray, and I mean this, that the Republicans show some backbone and act like they have a spine. Oh, my goodness sakes. I got to pay some bills here real quick, and then we've got to get Kerry Kupek on the line. Don't forget, let's ride. Oh, my goodness sakes. Now is the time. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take my own advice. I am going to get my four-wheelers loaded up on the trailer and take them over to Let's Ride at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World and have them serviced and ready to go for this spring. Yes, I am. And I'm telling you, you should do the same thing. Call for an appointment at 436-4771 in their service department and get your ATVs, your dirt bikes, your boats, everything ready for this next spring and summer. Don't wait till the last minute. I'm good at that. So take care of it today. Yes, and check out all the new ATVs over there at Let's Ride. Yep, where the fun is sold. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the world. By the way, if you're going over that direction, don't forget to Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. You know, we always put insurance on the back burner. Yeah, well, I'll take care of it next week. Oh, yeah, don't bother me about it. I'll make a note, and I'll take care of it here in about 3 weeks on a Monday. Well, maybe that Monday won't come. You'd better be prepared. Please contact them today for an appointment at 436-4424. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. They are very dedicated and responsive to your needs. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really nice people. Let's see, what else have I got here real quick before we go to Kerry Kupek. I think I've got everything all set to go. Don't forget, at 10:06 this morning, we are going to have Representative Fred Woods on our program with the Idaho Legislative Update. Don't forget that. Very interesting and informative always. And thank Fred for being on our program this morning. Real quick, before we go to Kerry, don't forget Red's Trading Post, 203 Fifth Avenue South in Twin Falls. Ryan Horsley and the whole crew with a great selection of new firearms from Browning, Beretta, Weatherby, Ruger, Benelli, Smith & Wesson, and Winchester. All the ammo, all the accessories. Oh, by the way, too, for the reloaders, they've got the hard-to-find powder for all the reloads. Yes, they do. All the gun cleaning kits, everything at Red's Trading Post. 203 Fifth Avenue South in Twin Falls. Lovely lady on the phone line, and I always look forward to her coming on the program. Kerry Kupek, good morning, with the Alliance Defending Freedom.
Good morning, Zeb. Happy to be here with you this morning.
What's the weather back on the East Coast for you this morning?
It's kind of chilly. It's in the 40s.
Yeah, that's about the same here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, about the same here. When do all those cherry trees usually blossom back there?
I think this year it looks like it's going to be late March, early April, and that's obviously a very beautiful time here in Washington, D.C.
Well, if you get a chance, take your cell phone, take a picture, and send it to Deanne. She loves all those cherry blossoms. All right.
I'd be happy to do that.
Hey, what's going on with Wisconsin Governor that Scott Walker and signed into law last Thursday, directing public funding to providers of comprehensive health insurance services away from Planned Parenthood? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is really great news. Governor Scott Walker has signed into legislation law that will redirect taxpayer money away from Planned Parenthood and to all the public health community centers that desperately need it. And obviously this is great. And as we've talked about many times on your show, the reason why this is so great is Planned Parenthood should not be profiting off of women and taxpayers, which is what they do. They have accepted more than $4 billion in taxpayer subsidies over the past decade, while reporting more than $765 million in excess revenue. This is an organization that has a long track record of abusive and potentially fraudulent billing practices. They have repeatedly failed to report the sexual abuse of minor girls, and as we saw this past summer, there were authenticated undercover videos that exposed their top-level executives and doctors negotiating, haggling, and laughing over the trafficking and selling of baby body parts. So it's time that this scandal-ridden organization stops getting tax money from the American people and goes to these public health community centers, which is why this is great that Governor Walker has done this. He's the ninth state. This is the ninth state to have done this. And then over the weekend, Governor Kasich in Ohio did the same exact thing, and obviously he's running for president, so that sends an even stronger message that this is something the American people just do not want anymore.
You know, Carrie, I got to be honest with you that the lawyers and the people connected with Planned Parenthood, they absolutely must think the American public is really stupid and naive, because when they turned the story around a couple of weeks ago and said that, oh no, these undercover videos, they were all spliced together and everything else. I mean, my goodness sakes, I saw and I heard this with my own eyes and ears. I've been in the media business for 47 years. I know what is truth and what is fiction. How does Planned Parenthood get away with creating everybody else as the bad guy and they're supposed to be the good guy? I don't understand how they can promote that.
They have a lot of money, and they have infiltrated the federal, state, and local level. They know where to invest their money. They know how to back politicians who will advocate for them and be their spokespeople. And that's how they've been able to do it. And speaking of those videos, in addition to exactly what you said, we can see what is in front of our face.
Yeah.
We can see with our own eyes human beings who are laughing and talking about selling and slicing up baby hearts and lungs and brains, and talking about the possibility of getting a Lamborghini off the profits. We know what we're seeing. But even beyond that, let's not forget, Coalfire, which is an internationally respected forensics analysis firm, authenticated these videos as accurate. That, in fact, Coalfire, what they ended up concluding was that the only thing that had been edited were bathroom breaks. I mean, really, who wants to see that, right? And times when the undercover journalists and report were traveling from site to site, and periods of delay of no talking. So these videos have been authenticated. We can obviously see what's going on in those videos, and it's great that states like Ohio and Wisconsin, now 10 states, that's 20% of the United States, have said no more. We will not put one more dime of the hard-earned money of the American people in the form of taxes to these organizations, to Planned Parenthood that does not deserve it. And we are going to give it to these public health community centers that provide these a whole host of comprehensive services for women and for men. And these clinics are the ones who actually really need it.
Tell me and my audience this morning, Carrie, the differences between these community health centers and Planned Parenthood so they understand the difference and why they should shun and absolutely denigrate the thought of Planned Parenthoods in their communities.
These public health centers provide comprehensive health care services for women. And so that's everything from primary care, checkups, to services particularly related to women's health. Let's talk about what Planned Parenthood doesn't do. They don't do mammograms. They have cut their cancer screening significantly. This is their own annual report will show that they've cut these things. There's not much left. They do some STD testing. They dispense and birth control and things like that. And of course, as we know, they facilitate abortion. And what a lot of people don't realize about Planned Parenthood, it's not that these women are going in and getting abortions for free. Abortions generally cost women who go into Planned Parenthood around $600. It can be a little bit less, it can be more. But this is a tremendous cash cow for them. They are making a lot of money off of abortions. So that's the difference. They do abortions, and most of these public health community centers are, they're strictly about real health care services, which is what you would think if you were going to, say, like an urgent care or something of that nature. But they provide these services for people who just can't afford it in low-income neighborhoods. And, I had a friend who actually worked around one of these clinics nearby, and she was telling me how they are so desperate for money. Women who are going in, who are pregnant and need help and need and need really quality health care. These clinics are designed for them, but they're struggling for money versus the Planned Parenthood down the street, who is getting millions and millions, $528 million a year to be exact, in taxpayer money, and yet they do very little. And anyway, what was interesting to me, and I'm sure you saw over the weekend, is that Donald Trump, unfortunately, doubled down on his defense of Planned Parenthood, and with all due respect to Mr. Trump, he really got some of his facts wrong.
You know, when you say that, you open the door for another question in regards to politicians and political support. What is the matter with these people, whether they're on the left side of the aisle or the right side of the aisle, that they can't sit down and study the issue and understand what's being done as far as the aborting of human lives through Planned Parenthood? Why are they so naively supporting Planned Parenthood, in your opinion?
I think they choose to be, quite honestly. People don't want to engage in conversations that are going to cause anger or frustration, and that's really sad because, again, look what we're talking about here. This should be an issue that people on both sides of the aisle can get around and acknowledge as what's going on and what is going on. Like we keep saying, they don't fail sexual abuse of minor girls. They've repeatedly, done that. They waste and abuse taxpayer money. They've engaged in potentially fraudulent billing practices where they overbill birth control by it's something like they get these pills for about around $3. That's how much they actually pay to purchase these birth control pills. Then they charge women who come through their doors anywhere between $27 and $32 for that same birth control. They're making a killing. They're making a fortune off of this. And these are Medicaid patients. It's unbelievable. Then obviously there have been these authenticated undercover videos where you see these top executives and doctors negotiating prices for baby body parts. So this is what we know. These are facts. And for any politician to not recognize them as truth and to say, look, we need to redirect, we need to be good stewards of the American taxpayer money and redirect this money towards these public health community centers, which I'd like to point out. There's an amazing website called getyourcare.org that actually you can put in your zip code and you can find one of these public health community centers in your neighborhood. They actually outnumber Planned Parenthood 20-1. It's a great resource. So it's hard to say. And I was really disappointed with Donald Trump for doubling down when he's talking about all these great services they provide. Well, the reality is these public health community centers provide those services and so much more, yet don't engage in gruesome abortion and human baby body parts trafficking.
All right, now in the case,
so there really was no reason for him to do that, and to me, it was evidence that he doesn't quite understand this issue.
There you go. You said it right there. He doesn't understand the issue. But now, using those words doesn't understand the issue. The politicians. But then on the other side of the coin, we've got a news media in general that is very left and very controlled by the left. How do we make inroads of letting the American public know the truth? I mean, I'm like John the Baptist crying in the wilderness. There's not that many conservative talk show hosts around the country that really are going to jump into this issue. So how do we change the media with their slant against us that think Planned Parenthood is very nasty?
The more people that talk about this, the better. The more people that get involved in their states and advocate for the unborn, advocate for life, get this message across. It's not about cutting off money to American women. It's about taking that same money and redirecting it towards health clinics that will actually help them far more than Planned Parenthood even has the capacity to do. Because speaking of that, I'd like to point out something. Planned Parenthood often refers women to outside clinics. So a lot of times, Planned Parenthood will say, oh, we offer this, this, and that. When the reality is, those women are going into Planned Parenthood facilities and they're just getting a referral slip to go somewhere else. So that people need to realize that as well. But so it's important that people keep this conversation up. The fact that we now have 10 out of the 50 states who have defunded and redirected taxpayer money with respect to Planned Parenthood in their states is amazing. That's 20%. I think we're going to continue to see more of that. That shows that the message is coming across loud and clear, and the American people are putting their foot down.
One final thought here, and I'm not asking you to endorse any candidate. I'm not even going to ask you for your opinion on any candidates. But do you feel that they have absolutely, they being both the left and the right, the Democrats and the Republicans, that they have skipped over this issue in every one of their debates so far?
Well, certainly not. So this issue has come up at many of the Republican debates, for sure. I don't know how much it has come up at the Democrat debates. I suspect not much. In fact, Marco Rubio said as much. He said, why is no one calling out Hillary Clinton on her extreme stances on abortion?
Right.
We're nitpicking over these minor components of abortion platforms, or at least just not as large-scale ones, and yet no one is calling out the Democrats for their extreme stances. For instance, Hillary Clinton has gone on the record as saying that she supports abortion up to the time of birth. This is a woman who supports partial birth abortion. That's a gruesome practice that very, very few people support. Everybody recognizes as extreme. These are the extremists, and they need to be called out for it.
Absolutely. Carrie, God bless you. I appreciate it. I always look forward to having you on Monday morning. Carrie Kupek, and she's the communications director for the Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Sounds good. Have a good day.
All right, take care. Thank you very much. Nice lady right there. And talking about, I'm just going to call it like it is, the idiocy of Planned Parenthood, and how they can get more than $4 billion with a B dollars in taxpayer subsidies. Wow, it's got to stop. Let's have the weather. Here's Gina with our weather forecast.
It's time to kick off another work week here at Zebeth Ranch, and here's what we're looking at as far as weather is concerned for today. It's going to be on the windy side out of the west, right around 20 miles an hour. Expect partly cloudy skies, high of 42 with an overnight low of 24. Sunny and 44 for tomorrow with an overnight low of 25 as we move on into Wednesday. Mostly sunny and 50, sunny and 54 for Thursday, and possibly 60 by Friday. That's your weather forecast for Zebeth Ranch.
Thank you very much, Gina. I appreciate that. And calls are welcome and appreciated right now. If you'd give me a jingle at 436-2244. Last week, a very dear friend of mine and a five-time world champion and Pro Rodeo Hall of Famer, Louis Field, passed away. And for those that didn't know about Louis' passing, he had battled stage 4 pancreatic cancer for quite some time. And he passed away at the way too early age of 59 years of age. I knew Louis very well as a college student years and years and years ago. I knew him as a professional rodeo cowboy. I knew him as a pickup man at the National Finals Rodeo. And I knew him as a stock contractor, producing many rodeos around the Intermountain West. And I worked many of his rodeos. And I always found him very pleasant, always with a smile, very congenial. And all I can say is that he will be missed. His wife, Veronica, and his family, and the younger of his two sons, Casey, is already a 4-time world champion in the bareback riding. And a very sad time for the sport of rodeo, losing this young man. And I say young at 59. Louis Field, world champion, Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, passed away last week at the age of 59 from stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And it saddens me. Louis was that kind of a guy. He always had that kind of wry smile, the hand in the cookie jar look on his face. And people that knew him really well, like Danny Brady, another good friend of mine. Danny, of course, qualified 6 times for the national finals. Used to travel with Louis and had some of the best remarks about Louis in his life, and I sincerely appreciate that. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Would somebody care to tell me why in Massachusetts they want to plan on making an uninhabited island a rattlesnake colony? Holy smokes, did you read this in the paper this morning? It'll really set your teeth on edge. There is a plan by the state of Massachusetts to establish a colony of venomous timber rattlesnakes on an off-limits island in Massachusetts' largest body of water. And other people are really worried about it because these snakes can swim. And where they would go across a very narrow inlet, they would be possibly going into the woods where hikers and fishermen and hunters frequent on a daily basis. Well, a gentleman by the name of Tom French of the State of Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife said, they're completely irrational fears based on public's aversion to snakes. Well, duh! You know, when I read this story, what came to mind is the same thing that's going on with the reintroduction of the wolves out here in the West. Same thing. Oh, well, these wolves aren't going to hurt you. Why, my goodness sakes, we're going to have them come down from Canada, and they're not going to bother anything. Why, it'll be great for the wildlife equality in our state. Why, sure, we've got to have them. All of our fears are irrational. But they weren't. Nor were the fears about our water problems, nor were the fears about the snail darter, nor were the fears about the little bitty fish in the irrigation system down in California, nor were the fears about the spotted owl. Nor are the fears about the sage grouse issue. Little by little, government is doing all they can, in my opinion, to stop us from using our public lands. And in the case of the state of Massachusetts, where they want to start a colony of venomous timber rattlesnakes on this island that very easily can go across a small inlet and get to another piece of land that is frequented every day, 24/7, 365, by hikers, fishermen, and hunters, you can't blame people for being upset. As a matter of fact, one of the people said, when the inevitable happens and there is an interplay between a hiker and a rattler, what's the repercussion going to be? Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to bother you again.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Well, if they put the rattlers on that island, as long as there's enough food over there, chances are they're going to stay. But once they multiply and eat up their food source, they're going to start going outside their boundary and look for a food source.
They will possibly leave. The small inlet is a very, very small tributary of water. And rattlesnakes, being that they can swim, I do not blame the people that frequent that, whether they're hikers or fishermen or hunters. To me, give me one good reason, Doug. Please, play the other side of the coin. Play the devil's advocate. Tell me why it's a good idea to put these poisonous snakes on that island.
I'm drawing a blank.
I am too.
I'm sorry. I tried to think of it. There's no good reason.
Yeah, I just don't understand why. And look at the wolves. Look at the sage grouse issue. Look at every issue in this United States that has gone against the public, gone against mankind for the furtherance of what?
Yeah, that's very, very true. Well, I got another customer come up. Hey, I need to call you more often.
All right, well, good. I'm glad you're busy. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. I just do not understand this at all, and why they would want to create an unsafe situation. And this guy, what was his name again? I read it a few moments ago. Tom French of the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. He said, well, rattlesnakes are timid creatures, and they only strike out when they're provoked. What are your thoughts on this? When you think about rattlesnakes, and you think about the wolves, and you think about the sage grouse, and you think about the spotted owl, and you think about all the other items and beings that are more protected than you or I, and our use of the public lands, This is crazy. This is some little child playing on the beach across from that little inlet. And all of a sudden, here comes a half a dozen or 8 rattlesnakes swimming up on shore. And that little child is bitten. What then? What then? Oh, that's a good spot for certified pest control. Yes, sir, we'll turn Kevin loose on those rattlesnakes. He'll get them. Hey, by the way, I want to tell you that certified pest control, and I absolutely firmly believe you'd better get a hold of Kevin and the crew today. Now, first of all, let's talk about killing weeds for this spring with pre-treatment. And all the trees and everything, they use an insecticide and dormant oil to kill the pests and be safe, and that B is B-E-E, B-E-E, safe. There you go. Great for the honeybees, etc., everything else. And he can take care of all the noxious weeds. We used him at Certified Pest Control to get rid of the voles and the mice. And oh, what a job this man did. I firmly believe you're going to be very happy with him, and I urge you to give them a call at 219-7576. That number again, 219-7576. Certified Pest Control for your trees, to get rid of the weeds and get rid of the pests. They're good. 219-7576. Your turn. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927. Excuse me. 927-4587. Give me a jingle. I just don't understand. Speaking of snakes, did you see the story about a Utah woman that found a snake head in a can of green beans? I am not kidding you. I read that in the paper this morning, and I'm going to tell Deanne from now on we're going to go through every can of green beans. The story said an Oregon food distribution company has halted some shipments of canned green beans after a woman said she found a severed snake head in the can. And the unsettling discovery was made Wednesday night at a Mormon church in Farmington, Utah, while women and youth were preparing a meal for older members of the congregation. Oh, wow. The lady said it looked pretty much like a burnt bean. And then as she got closer to lift it off the spoon, she saw it had eyes. And that's when she just dropped it and screamed. And I understand that the distributor is Western Family, an Oregon-based food distribution company whose label was on the can. Check the green beans, goober! My, oh my, oh my. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have Representative Fred Wood on our program this next half hour with the Idaho Legislative Update. And then at 10:32, we have Gail Trotter. She's an attorney and an excellent writer, and she has written, holy smokes, I didn't get a chance to get through everything, about a 20-page piece on Hillary and why women and others are turning away from Hillary this year as far as her getting the Democratic nod. So we're going to have Gail Trotter on at 10:32 this morning. But right now we're going to turn it over to Wheels, and we'll be back in about 6 minutes. Well, here we go. Hour number 3 on a Monday. This is February 22nd. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Call and get on the route service at 734-6969. We're going to have our guest with us on the Idaho Legislative Update momentarily, but don't forget, I mentioned last hour, I'll say it again. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Yep, used to be Ted's Diesel Electric Service. Well, now it is Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. New location, too, at 635 21st Street on El Fresco Road in Hebron. I'm telling you, this old boy, he can rebuild starters, alternators, generators, and also sells brand new. He's open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Give him a call, 878-4991. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. You know what's coming up in a matter of days is going to be the 21st annual Great Big Sheridan Ranch Bull Sale. Cordell and Patty Sheridan, and the number to call for more information, 824-5531. This is going to be another ripping good sale. Let me tell you what, they've got 85 bulls to sell, that is, at the Burley Livestock Sale Yard, and that's going to start at 1 p.m. on March 5th, Saturday, March 5th, and this is a great bull sale. For anybody that needs bulls, go there. And they've got a guest consignor this year, Deep Creek Ranch with Dennis and Cindy Tim. I'm telling you what, problem-free cattle bull sale. This is the best, always has been. Sheridan Ranch Bull Sale, and that's coming up March 5th at 1 p.m. at the Burley Livestock Sale Yard. Right now, let's go to the phone lines, and I just visited with this gentleman the other day on Saturday at the Lincoln Day Banquet and Dinner. Good morning to Representative Fred Wood for our Idaho Legislative Update. Good morning, Fred. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. How are you this morning?
I am great. By the way, thank you for the visit last Saturday, and you did a great job talking about what's going on at the legislative session. And I'm going to kind of turn it over to you to kind of pick and choose some of the topics that you want to inform the audience about. Is we're looking at, according to you and others, maybe about 3 more weeks of the Idaho legislative session. What still needs to be settled?
Well, I think I think with any luck, we should be out of here by the 25th of March. How many ever weeks that is. I suppose we could go home on the 18th, but I'll bet we wind up being to the 25th. Well, JFAC started setting the budget this morning, Zeb, and they take 3 weeks to set the budget. And after they set, each day after they set those budgets on that day, it literally takes Legislative Services about a week to get those budgets all compiled and proofread, make sure all the numbers are correct, etc. Then they start kicking them out to both sides of the Senate and the House, and then we take up the budgets and then send them over to the other side and get them passed. So we'll start seeing budgets come across both the Senate and the House floor, probably here in about 10 days. Typically, today is about the 22nd of February, so I think they'll wind up finishing setting budgets on about the 10th of March. So, you know, within 10 days to 2 weeks after that, we should be home, barring any problems. The education budget apparently is going to be set pretty early this year. I think at the very beginning of next week, like next Monday roughly, or late this week, but I'm pretty sure it's about Monday of next week. So that's the kind of the overview of the budget. With respect to budget setting. Mm-hmm. There's still a bunch of work going on, Seb, with respect to what some of these budgets are going to look like and how much money is going to be in each of the budgets. I think that in the education budget, there's enough money there to do what the legislature has committed to over a 5-year plan. I think the other thing that's happening, the governor's primary care access program called PCAP in healthcare, the funding for that was rejected last Monday. So I think that is dead. However, there is a considerable move in the legislature to say these 78,000 people, or how many ever it is exactly, a lot of members of the legislature feel that the legislature should do something about their health care and not leave them out in the cold, Zeb.
Well, basically, let me ask...
There is a bunch of talk going on. I don't know where it goes. I don't know which direction it goes. I don't know how far it goes, etc. I think that's a work in progress. But the audience just ought to know that there is work being done to try to figure out what we're going to do with health care for that population. And then with respect to education, there's still some policy decisions that need to be made from the Germain Committee. And I know they're working, they worked all weekend to try to figure out the last components of that. And I think you'll see that introduced this week. Pretty much needs to be introduced this week if they're going to get it done before we go home.
Okay.
So that's a high-level, brief overview, and I'll let you decide where you want to go with anything you've been hearing or from that.
All right, well, now let me ask you this question. I'm going to be a little naive and I'm very uneducated about this one situation with Medicaid and those 78,000 people. For lack of better terminology, it seems like there is a bubble of 78,000 Idahoans who make too much to qualify for Medicaid, but also they don't qualify for health insurance subsidies. So I guess my naive question would be, Fred, what caused that problem for those 78,000 people?
Okay, I'll see if I can pare this down to about 2 minutes. Those 78,000 people, Zeb, Idaho has never, ever expanded the medication or the Medicaid population beyond what federal law calls for. And federal law says that you have to cover the disabled, you have to cover the severe and persistently mentally ill, you have to cover children, and you have to cover pregnant women. That's all. So anybody between the ages of 19 and 64, as long as you're not pregnant and as long as you don't have one of the other conditions that I mentioned, there is no federal law or federal requirement that states have to cover that population. That is the 78,000 people. They're adults. They don't make enough money to get on the exchange. Remember, you have to make at least 100% of the federal poverty level or above to get on the exchange. And these people were covered under the Affordable Care Act until the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government could not force the states to cover those people that they hadn't covered previously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some states had already gone on and covered those before the Affordable Care Act. So Idaho has never chosen to expand their population eligibility rolls to those people. Okay, we're still operating on pre-Affordable Care Act eligibility criteria for Medicaid. We have not expanded Medicaid, and that's that population.
Okay, now, am I correct in saying it this way, that basically Obamacare and the implementation of Obamacare caused these people to be overlooked so that they have the problem they do today? Is that the problem?
No, Obamacare incorporated these people in Medicaid.
I see.
Okay? By saying if the states didn't incorporate them, then the federal government could withhold all Medicaid funding to the states. Supreme Court came along and said, yeah, you can't force the states to do that, in effect saying the states can choose for themselves which populations of the poor they want to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 30 states have gone on and covered everybody. 6 more states are in the process of doing that.
Okay.
So there are 14 states that have not so far done anything with that portion of their population.
And the estimated
being one of those.
The estimated cost on this, if I'm correct, I thought I read it was about $30 million that the state of Idaho has got to figure out how to come up with that money, or is that the bottom line? What is the cost factor involved in covering these people?
Okay, if you put them on the program that I think they ought to be put on, which is a private, fully at-risk managed care organization model of health care, which is the most efficient, best outcome-based system for health care, providing it's run correctly, then that would roughly cost for those 78,000 people about $500 million. The federal government would pick up this year 95% of that, and starting in 2020, pick up 90% of that. The state would have to come up with $50 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that $50 million plus is already available, because when you do that, here is the following funding streams that you can put into that, Zeb. This year, we will spend $19 million on the Catastrophic Health Care Fund. Well, that fund would be eliminated. That $19 million would go towards that $50 million. You've got the county levy that would go towards that. You've got $13.5 million in the Millennium Fund that would go towards that. You've got $14 million in the Department of Health and Welfare Mental Health Fund that would go towards that. You've got 2 smaller programs in the Department of Health and Welfare, about $3 million that would go towards that. So there's about $72 million right now that is currently being spent on health care that would, doing the program that I talked about, would completely duplicate those services. So there's more than enough state funding already. You don't have to spend an additional dollar to get that covered.
Okay. But now, Fred, I think you and I talked a little bit on Saturday about this. Can and will this issue be able to be solved in this legislative session?
It's getting pretty late, Zeb, to solve it. That's a big issue. That is a big, big issue for a lot of people to get their heads around. I think people need to, if we can solve it, we'll try. But I think people shouldn't be too disappointed if we have to work on it over the interim and get it done and done right. This is one thing that you get one shot at, and if you don't do this right, you'll delay this by a decade. So we can't hurry this up. This has got to be done right, and it's got to be done timely.
Absolutely. What are some of the other issues? One other issue I wanted to talk about, because you know my stand on the minimum wage. I'm absolutely against a forced raising of the minimum wage. And I know that basically the House voted against that raising of the minimum wage by letting cities and counties kind of do it themselves, correct?
We voted against that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to take your take on it. I just honestly think this minimum wage across the nation has been a real knife in the back to a lot of employers, and I think it's going to drive a lot of jobs out of existence. What's the general feeling up there at the session when they had this for discussion?
Well, I think most people are opposed to that, and particularly having various levels of minimum wage in any given state.
Right.
That certainly ought to be a statewide issue. The fact, though, is that I don't know how many employers I've talked to have to pay $2 or $3 or $4 above minimum wage even to get employees at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
The market is taking care of itself.
Right.
I think, literally, that coming along and putting a minimum wage And particularly if you're going to try to peg it to something like defining a minimum wage as a livable wage, you talk about really a perverse incentive to a free market system. That does all the wrong things to a free market system.
Absolutely.
That's not what a minimum wage is for.
But the verbiage in the paper, and I'm so glad you just mentioned that. Let's see, I'm trying to remember who said this, but I think it was a Democrat out of Boise, Representative John Gannon, made this following quote, and I took exception to this. He said, "The minimum wage is not adequate for our young people to work and pay the expenses we're placing them on them as a generation." Minimum wage is an entry job wage. It's not supposed to be for raising a family of 4. It's not supposed to be able to let you go buy a new boat or a car. I just absolutely am incensed that they're using the minimum wage and holding it as a family wage.
His argument did not sell well in the legislature. I can tell you that just didn't go anywhere. He's wrong about that. In my opinion.
Absolutely. Now, Fred, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I want you to kind of pick and choose. What other topics do you see that may be looming as obstacles before the end of this session? Do you see anything else that we need to talk about and alert the people about this morning?
I think there's a couple of ones that have cropped up recently. First of all, there's House Bill 380. Now, House Bill 380 is Representative Moyle's tax relief bill. And what that does, and it's fairly controversial, because what that does is, Zeb, it gives me a tax break, and it doesn't give the poor people anything.
Oh.
And that, I was, the only day that I missed in the last several years from being sick, I was sick that day and never got to vote on that bill. I would have voted no, as did Maxine Bell and Mark Gibbs, which is the chairman and the vice chairman of the budget setting committee, because they understood what that did. Tax relief is one thing, but we're going about tax relief wrong. That's not the kind of tax relief. I don't need tax relief. Other people need tax relief, but I don't, and that gives me tax relief, Zeb, and that's not the appropriate way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But that has passed the House, and it's sitting over in the Senate. Now, there's going to be a big fight over that and the budget, because if you take that $27 million away, then you've got to take that out of some programs. So are you going to take that out of education? Or are you going to take that out of health and welfare? Or are you going to take that out of, what are you going to take it out of?
Right.
Then we have a real issue in the Department of Health and Welfare concerning foster children and the foster care program. It is a real mess, and there's 2 or 3 bills out there. There's a Senate bill, and there's 2 House bills addressing that. I don't think any of those bills are good bills at this point in time. We're going to have an interim committee over the interim to address that specific issue. So those are 2 bills that, in the end game of getting out of here, may have some impact, and people need to watch those, particularly if you're interested in either one of those categories in state government.
Fred, while we have just a moment here, and I've got to sign off, but I'm sure a lot of people, your constituents, want to know that while you're in session, if they have questions, how do they get a hold of you? How do they voice their concerns? What's the means and method of trying to reach you?
Okay, the best way, the state email address is the following. It's fwood, this is all lowercase, it's fwood@house.idaho.gov.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple, and if you follow our newsletter that comes back home through the Chamber of Commerce, or it's posted on all 3 Facebook accounts, etc., we have our contact information there. Secondly, my cell phone number, Zeb, which I have it pasted to my ear day and night, is 208-312-1056. Again, 312 1056. So please email me or please call me any time of the day or night, and any of us would be happy to get right back to you as soon as we can. If we're really busy, it may take us a day, but we will be happy to get back to you.
All right, Representative Fred Wood, a very dear friend of this program and does a great job representing us here in the state of Idaho. Fred, God bless. Thank you so much, and we'll have you on hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
We will. Thanks, Zeb. Talk to you later.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Gentleman that I have the highest respect for, Representative Fred Wood at the legislative session in Boise, and that's our Idaho legislative update for today. I want to say thank you very much to a couple of businesses that helped put together a segment on Thursdays called Cassia County School Days. And I want to say thanks to A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. You know, they've got all the furniture, the cribs, the changers, the chest of drawers, everything over there. All the clothes, all the games, all the puzzles. It is a great, great store. Stop in and you'll see what I mean. And you know what? They've already started to get the spring clothes in, and they carry the Cherokee scrubs too at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. And also sponsoring Cassia County School Days, the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland in Burley. And here's the number to put on the refrigerator, on the wall, whatever, 677-8888. They can help save you hundreds of dollars on your outpatient surgeries. You be sure and check with them today. Please give them a call. Ask questions. They'll give you the information at Ambulatory Surgery Center, 1344 Highland in Burley. The number again, 677-8888. Along with A Child's World, bringing you School Days in Cassia County on Thursdays at 10:10. Let's see what else have we got here. I think what we're going to do is send this back over to our main studios momentarily for our bottom of the hour programming, and then Wheels will send it back to us. We're going to be having Attorney Gail Trotter on the air in just a few moments. She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, and she's going to be talking about Hillary Clinton's plummeting support among women. So don't miss that. Coming up in just a very few minutes. Right now, let's send it back over to Wheels.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much and welcome back. We're on the home stretch, if you will, for this morning's program. And there's a lady that's been on my program many, many times in the past, and I always look forward to having her back because she really knows her stuff when it comes to politics, and she is Attorney Gail Trotter, senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Good morning, Gail. How are you?
I am great. Great to be with you. How are you doing this morning?
I am fantabulous, but I got to tell you, I'm confused and concerned. And I'll say that, and I'll give you a little bit of a remark as to why. I do not understand how Hillary Clinton and, on the other side of that coin, Bernie Sanders can possibly be mustering any support from the Democrats or liberals in general. One is going to be 75 years old this fall and is an avowed socialist and communist, and Hillary might be indicted and might be in prison before the election. How in the world do they gain their support?
Well, I particularly agree with you on the question of Hillary. I wrote a piece for the Daily Caller, I guess about a year ago, talking about Hillary's troubled past with the truth and all of the scandals that have gone on with her over, her decades in the public eye and in politics. And it is astonishing to me that Democrats hold her up as an icon and are giving her so much support during this presidential election. But I would say that Bernie Sanders' success is showing that she does have a weakness with the Democrats. And what's particularly fascinating is that all of the polls have shown that she has a deficit with Democratic women voters. And you would think that Democratic women voters would be so excited to vault Hillary Clinton into the Oval Office or to help with that effort solely for the fact that she would be the first woman president. But the weakness is showing in that many women, especially young women, are supporting Bernie Sanders. It's quite fascinating.
You know, when I look at women involved in politics, Gail, and this is just my own personal opinion, I look back at the likes of Condoleezza Rice. There's a perfect example. I could have very easily supported her for the presidency of the United States. But on the other side of that coin, I know I sound prejudiced, I look at Hillary Clinton. A life that has been with a lot of shadows, a life that has been a lot of vagaries, a lot of life that has been lying and innuendos. How in the world can people look at her and really think of her sitting in the Oval Office?
That's right. I agree with you about Condi, and she is such an exemplar of work ethic and really trying to learn what she wanted to do in life and to achieve and to, ascend to the very top corridors of power in the United States. She is a model, I think, for all women, regardless of political proclivities. And Hillary Clinton has got to be the polar opposite of Condoleezza Rice. She used every opportunity to enrich herself, starting with the cattle futures, where she turned $1,000 into nearly $100,000 within 10 short months. You think about the Whitewater investigation. You think about the Travelgate scandal that happened while President Bill Clinton was in the White House. And you think about the continuing appearance of corruption that marks the donations to the Clinton Foundation while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and making national American policy on issues that affected some of the governments and organizations that were contributing to her foundation at the same time. And I think the most dangerous thing, not only for the precedent it has, but also for those of our brave Americans who are serving overseas and are in harm's way, the fact that she would set up her own email server and have confidential information that's classified, not only to protect American interests, but also to protect American lives, those people who serve overseas and are relying on the United States to protect them in these dangerous circumstances, let alone to think about Benghazi and the complete and utter disaster that terrible episode in American history was. But when you think about that and contrast that with somebody like Condoleezza Rice, you understand that women can be put off by someone who shows such a complete and utter lack of trustworthiness and leadership in a time of crisis. And I think that's why we're seeing that Hillary's support among women is so weak, except in New Hampshire, the demographic of women that supported her over Sanders were the over 65 women. And those are women like Madeleine Albright, who, although she's not a New Hampshire voter, she went out right before the New Hampshire election and said that there's a special place in Hades for women who do not support other women. Also, Gloria Steinem, I'm sure you remember her, an icon of the feminist movement. She went out and alleged that young women were flocking to support Bernie Sanders because that's where the boys were. So it was a complete slam on young women, and it was, obviously a negative thing to say about Bernie Sanders' campaign, too. But they are the old guard of feminism, and they are trying to get their exemplar in the Oval Office.
You know, Gail, we were talking about this in the first hour of my program today, but a caller called in and I thought brought up a really good point, that the Democrats, and i.e. especially Hillary, they seem to be playing the blacks and the Hispanics and the minorities in general as political pawns. And you would think that those groups would see through this and they would resist any vote for her whatsoever. What are your thoughts on that?
She's certainly relying on that southern firewall of black voters who were very supportive of her husband, Bill Clinton, when he was running for president. In fact, many observers in that community called him the first black American president.
Right.
He had a real connection with the African American community, and Hillary Clinton is certainly trying to tap that, but it's a difficult balance because a lot of the immigration policies that she's advocating, like you were mentioning, she's trying to make an appeal to the Hispanic community. A lot of those open border immigration policies hurt the African American community the most because many people in the African American community, especially in the cities, are from a community where they don't have a lot of access to opportunities. They might not have the same level of education. They might not have the same level of skills. So they're going to be competing for the same jobs as the people who are coming across the border in waves, who are advocates of this open border policy. So the interests of the African American community may not be aligned with the interests of the illegal immigrant community, and I think that's proving a difficult line for her to walk.
What do you think is her appeal? If you had to look at this, the pros and the minuses, the pluses and the minuses, what is her plus? I mean, here's a woman that absolutely, she sounds like a raucous magpie when she stands up and chortles to the audience, and then she barked like a dog the other day imitating Republicans. Please tell me, what is her appeal? I can't find any.
I think people feel like she has suffered a lot, and if you listen to her on the campaign trail, she talks an extraordinary amount about how she works so hard. She is trying to tell the American people and the voters that she deserves this. She is entitled to this. She was desperate to get into the White House, to get the Democratic nomination in 2008, and she went hard after Barack Obama, and she was rejected. And the idea that she took a position in Barack Obama's administration as Secretary of State was sort of a consolation prize. I mean, it's an amazing, important position in the federal government, but it's not what her true ambition was. And I think for a lot of Americans, they see that, during the Monica Lewinsky and what the Clintons themselves called the bimbo eruptions, she was the ever-patient, suffering wife. Truth is, she went after all those women and tried to discredit them and smear them. But I think that the liberal mainstream media did a good job, or a successful job, of portraying Hillary Clinton as the victim and as someone who is deserving of respect. And so I think the people that support Hillary Clinton feel like she has been waiting all this time to ascend for her aspiration. And I also think that, this is a divided country. There are many very liberal people who want to see us move in a socialist direction, who want to see the Constitution changed in whatever way the political policy that the progressives would like to advocate, to see that happen, and to move our society in a direction that looks more European and more one-size-fits-all solutions from Washington, D.C. that really force people into cookie-cutter lives instead of the freedom and the independence that our nation has always thrived in. So I think that for those people, they need to be convinced at the ground level that actually what the Democrats and Hillary Clinton are promising them will limit their ability to thrive, to have that Aristotelian idea of flourishing, and that really what we need as people are more opportunities, a growing economy to overcome our $19 trillion debt that has been significantly added to under the Obama administration. But until those messages are getting out there, I think you're going to continue to see the strength of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
Okay, but now I guess I'm going to beat this horse a little bit more, but I look at Bernie Sanders and it's I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll provide free education. And then you listen to Hillary, and she, of course, has her own liberal means of trying to get the audience won over to her side. And when you look at the entire left, the Democratic liberal left, my goodness, if we think we're going to be appalled at $19 trillion in debt, if we get either one of those people in as the president, we could see $30 trillion in debt. What's the matter with the American public? They can't see through this.
Right, right, and it's so funny because I think a lot of times their argument is that people who oppose all of these gimmies from the government are heartless. Why don't you want kids to have free college? Why do you want to deny opportunity? Why do you want to make everything so difficult for people? Conservatives need to do a better job of getting the message out there that when we earn our success, it's more satisfying. So yes, the government can give you everything, but as Ronald Reagan says, the government that can give you everything can take everything away. So you have a psychological benefit for striving and actually achieving your own success, but there's also a governmental understanding that conservatives really clearly know that if the government has the ability to give you all these things, the government also has a concomitant right to control your behavior, your choices in life. It limits your choice. And Republicans try to get that message out there, but unfortunately, Zeb, as you know, when they come to Washington, they somehow come a part of this Potomac fever, and then they feel like they have to be part of this idea that Washington can solve all the personal problems that people have. And when you look particularly at the Obamacare issue, I find it's really fascinating that Hillary Clinton's approach is, I'm going to be a third term of President Obama. And Obamacare, while it's not perfect, I, Hillary Clinton, am going to build on the strengths of Obamacare and fix what's wrong, but not try to start from scratch, because those nasty Republicans will never, compromise or help us with this healthcare regime, this nationalized healthcare regime that we want. And she faults Bernie Sanders for wanting to blow up Obamacare and start from scratch. And I think that's a really fascinating political strategy of hers, because I don't think in the general election that it's going to benefit Hillary to really say that what she's saying now, that she wants to extend and expand on what President Obama has built instead of offering something different. I think that's why we see these anti-establishment candidates, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, being so successful, because they're not happy. President Obama promised them certain things, and we have seen that we have this anemic economy, wage stagnation, lack of opportunity, and so the promised land that he articulated to people, it just hasn't occurred. And I would argue that things are worse than they were previously.
Let me ask you this, and I know I'm jumping way ahead, but already this morning there were political pundits on various news organizations and news media that were saying, well, it's a done deal. It's going to be Hillary on the left and it's going to be Donald Trump on the right, blah, 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 and they went on and on and on. Let's assume that they're correct. What would be the strategy if you were Donald Trump to go against Hillary so that you don't have that gender card thrown at you all the time? And how can you defeat the left and the very liberal media?
Yeah, it's so funny because Donald Trump is the anti-candidate. So he is the only politician that I've known in my lifetime who uses a media firestorm as a campaign strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen a politician do that. I think he's refreshing to a lot of people because, and to journalists as well, because unlike Hillary Clinton, who won't go on Fox News' Chris Wallace show, Sunday shows, and talk with him and be open and answer questions, she only wants questions that are pretty much softball questions. I mean, even that, I think it was Scott Pelley interview last week where he was asking her about whether she lied, and she said, well, I've tried my best not to lie, or I don't think I've lied, and it was a very mealy-mouthed response, but he didn't push her on it. He didn't then go through, the list, this article that I wrote for the Daily Caller that had multiple examples. He didn't go through and say, okay, well, explain here how you didn't lie here. Explain here how you didn't lie here. He just gave her a softball. And a lot of the other liberal mainstream media has made a big deal of that interview, but it was so gentle. And, if anything, it was an attempt to allow Hillary to explain herself. But I think for Donald Trump, I don't know what his strategy will be, and I certainly wouldn't give him advice, because all the advice I would have given to him prior to this point in time, I don't think would have helped him, because he's probably gone against everything, every piece of advice that I would have given him. I think on the gender card, that's a really great question and a really interesting one. I think he has an advantage on that over, Marco Rubio, for example, because he and the whole Megyn Kelly thing,
yes,
that should have killed him. That should have just counted him out. But he was able to turn that to his advantage. And I think he will do the same thing with Hillary, because he is not afraid. And he communicates that to people. And I think people are sick of our politically correct conversation that we're having, not only in national politics, but even on the personal level. And I think that although, in a lot of ways he's not conservative, I think he appeals to a lot of diehard conservatives because he's willing to speak his mind. And even if he steps on a landmine, he embraces it and, keeps plugging on. So I think he's figured out his strategy, and I think he will continue to gain strength, even though he may not be the best candidate that the Republicans can put forward.
One last thought, Gail, and I know this is way off the track that we're on this morning, but I feel compelled to ask you because of your expertise on these subjects, and that's the seat for Justice Antonin Scalia, filling that seat on the Supreme Court. I'll tell you my stand right now, I'm very concerned that Barack Obama is going to try to push for a very liberal left nominee, and if the Senate keeps turning it down up to recess, I'm very afraid that Obama will use his pen and his phone and executive orders, and at that recess put somebody in on that court seat. What are your fears? Do you agree with me or not?
I think Obama has shown over and over again that he will use whatever authority he has and then some to try and get his raw power asserted, to get his public policy out there without having to go through Congress, without abiding by the Senate and the Constitution. Now, as you know, with Justice Scalia's replacement, Justice Scalia was a towering champion of democracy and of our Constitution, and he said that he hoped that he could hold on through President Obama's presidency, because he wanted to make sure that Obama did not replace him with someone who would spend 25 years undoing what Justice Scalia had done on the court for 30 years. So I think you're right about President Obama, but I will tell you that Washington Republicans need to redeem themselves with Republican voters. This is why voters gave the Senate Republicans the majority in 2014 to stop President Obama's fundamental transformation of this nation. And if the Republicans cave, the Senate Republicans cave, and actually end up confirming President Obama's nominee, then this will have lasting repercussions. This will make sure that President Obama's legacy will be carried on far beyond when he actually leaves the Oval Office. So I understand your concern about the recess appointments, but it is vitally important that the Republicans do not give their stamp of approval to anyone that President Obama would select for the Supreme Court, unless, which will never happen, President Obama follows President Eisenhower and President Hoover's examples. Both of those presidents were Republicans. They had Democratic majority Senates, and they appointed Democratic justices to fill the spaces on the Supreme Court. So if President Obama nominated someone like Mike Lee, who's a phenomenal lawyer and senator from Utah, then Republicans would do backflips over wanting to confirm him. But you know what? President Obama is never going to do that.
Absolutely. Dear friend of this program, Attorney Gail Trotter, Senior Fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Excellent on the program every time she appears. Thank you, Gail. God bless, and come back soon.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much, Zeb.
Thank you. I just love talking to her because she knows what's going on in the land of politics, and we appreciate it. I am really running late, and I've got to get the weather on right now. Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Don't forget about their tax return meat bundle. Delicious. 70-plus pounds of beef, pork, and chicken for only $2.49 plus tax. Oh, it's great, and it's guaranteed to good. Your hometown meat cutter, Scarrows Meats. Right now, let's have Gina with the weather.
It's time to kick off another work week here at Zeb at the Ranch, and here's what we're looking at as far as weather is concerned for today. It's going to be on the windy side out of the west, right around 20 miles an hour. Expect partly cloudy skies, high of 42 with an overnight low of 24. Sunny and 44 for tomorrow with an overnight low of 25 as we move on into Wednesday. Mostly sunny and 50, sunny and 54 for Thursday, and possibly 60 by Friday. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, Gina, thank you very much. Brought to you by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. It's good. Hey, by the way, I also want to remind you about our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. They are our major sponsor on this program, have been with us for many, many years, and I really say thank you. They're celebrating the Founders Celebration in commemoration of Mr. Les Schwab. What a great man he was. And they've got many, many, many of their tires on sale, like the Proxis 4 Plus, all-season performance tire, precise cornering and control. You'd better check it out for your passenger cars today. Okay, and don't forget, too, the best in brake service. Professionally trained technicians and free brake inspections and estimates. They are good. The brake industry's best warranty, too, at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And all the front-end alignments, the shocks and the struts and the batteries, but above all, the service. Stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, celebrating Founders Day. Well, I want to tell you, too, that you've been listening to Zeb at the Ranch all 3 hours this morning. Make sure you're hearing everything. Contact Mount Harrison Audiology for a hearing screening. You call them for an appointment today. Call at 312-0957. Tomorrow on the program, let's see who's going to be here. I know that we're going to have Frosty Woolridge from Denver, Colorado. I know that we're going to have Dr. History on the program, and I'm working on a couple of other subjects for the 9:30 and the 10:30 hour tomorrow, so I'll have that for you tomorrow morning. I want to reiterate that on Wednesday, we're going to have University of Idaho President Staben on our program at 10:30, and we're going to be talking about colleges. We're going to be talking about the high cost of higher education. We're going to be talking about the problems at universities and colleges today and why it seems like the students basically are running the program instead of the way it ought to be. We're going to talk to him on Wednesday at 10:30. Don't forget about that. One other quick reminder, this Thursday, the 25th, will be Lunch Bunch at Denny's Restaurant. So put that on your calendar at 11:30 on this Thursday. Well, we're going to put it back in the box and wrap it up for today. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 8:06 right here on KBAR 1230 and then streaming live on the internet, zebbell.com. Until tomorrow morning at 8:06. God bless you and your family, and remember, the way things were are the way things ought to be. Wheels, we'll see you tomorrow morning.